Hello everyone, welcome to ARK Ascended and my first build guide. Unlike the guys I play with, I play ARK to build and only to build. And recently, I built this pyramid for my tribe. Many thanks, by the way, to Darkside01 and Dragon Ruse for putting up with my manic building, hissy fits, and often unreasonable demands as I took all their resources for building supplies. And credit where credit is due, the Atrium was all dark side, as was the idea to paint the exterior shields, and Dragon was invaluable when it came to knocking out rebuilds during the 1.0 construction, and his insight into the game's HUD and camera mechanics was both a boon and a curse. It was a long road to get here, so let's get into it. In this video, we're going to build a 2.0 version of that pyramid. This time around, I'll be using Adobe and Tech rather than the Adobe and Metal that was used in the original. And I'll be building on a private server in GCM instead of the third-party server where we built the original without GCM. Things to note, I crash a lot in this game. So I had to record the footage for this guide in pieces. So there may be rough cuts here and there where I crashed and had to redo a section. So I may not always be positioned in exactly the same spot, but I don't think you've lost any of the relevant build information. That being said, due to one such crash, I apparently lost the very beginning footage where I built out the starting foundation. But it's nothing terribly complicated. The base is a 20 by 20 square. It doesn't have to be level, just place the foundations in a square, then find the highest foundation piece and use that as your level, building off of it with ceiling tiles to make everything to the same height, and then close the sides with wall pieces. This is going to function as the basement of the pyramid. If you want, you can do foundation all throughout the whole inside to make all of the basement one level. And if you do that, building the rest of the pyramid later on is going to be a lot easier for you. I'm not going to do this because we like to keep tames in the basement. So having that extra space where the sand is helps for some of the taller dinosaurs. It is going to make it a little bit more complicated as this build progresses once we get to the higher levels, where I have to do a little bit of quick thinking and testing to make sure I have foundations in the right place to support everything above. So please note, after I've completed the 20 by 20 box, I went inward by one tile and I did this all the way around. This functions as a raised walkway around the lower sandy portions of the basement where the tames are going to be. That open spot in the back there is actually the rear of the pyramid. I left it open because I'm going to try and incorporate a Behemoth gate into this build to help get the tames into the basement. There was no gate in the original build, so I'm using this as a test run. And if it works, I'll be adding the Behemoth gate to the original pyramid as well. The Behemoth gate is the only part of this build that requires GCM, as I have to use ghost mode to go under the map to build the scaffolding that's going to allow me to sink the gate into the ground and therefore make it smaller above ground. Again, the original build doesn't have this, so if you don't have access to GCM, that's fine. Just finish the rear wall identical to the right or left, as the basic structure for all of them is the same. All right, the gate's in place. Looks perfect. Now it's time to build the walls. In the original version of the pyramid, the walls here were only 2 tiles high. But that became an issue for some of the larger tames, so this time we're going to go 3 tiles high all the way around the perimeter. This is going to form the interior wall of the basement and won't be visible to the outside once the lower skirting has been added to the exterior. I'm also going to use this time to wall in the sides of the Behemoth gate to make it a little narrower to fit their overall structure of what we're going for. With the walls done, we can now start to place the floor on the main level of the pyramid. Place a quarter tile in the corner first to offset the ceiling tile. Once it's in place, remove the quarter tile and continue placing ceiling tiles around the perimeter of the basement walls. Then fill inwards as far as you can until you're not able to place anymore, because we still have some work to do on the basement foundation. Once you've placed as much as you can, we're going to leave this alone for a bit and work more on the exterior wall and basement skirting. Temporarily remove each of the corner tiles from the flooring that you just installed, and you can now place quarter wall tiles directly on top of the basement walls. Place them in each direction and go all the way around the perimeter. For this build, all the accent tiles are going to be Tek, but for the original we used metal. As you go, you can replace the corner ceiling tiles or just replace them once you're done placing all the quarter tiles. Now we're going to place the main entry gate and the stairs leading to it. The stairs will be 3 wide and the door will be centered on those. The stairs are going to get inset by half a tile so it stands out against the rest of the pyramid skirting. And from the stairs, the door is going to be inset by a full tile. Also keep in mind the door is not as wide as the stairs. You need to come in 1/4 tile on each side, as I'm about to forget and now have to fix. Okay, now we can do the basement skirting on the front of the pyramid and add a back behind the Tek stairs because they're see-through and we don't want to see the adobe on the other side. And the skirting for this is going to be done with upside down adobe roof tiles. Okay, each skirting wall has a window placement in the center. It's 3 wide on the bottom, 2 wide in the middle, and 1 wide at the top of the pyramid. And it's always 2 windows high with tech or metal or whatever you're using for your accent pieces below that. Quick side note, for those spots along the sand where there's still a bit of a gap, but it won't let you put another tile, if you have access to GCM, going into ghost mode and dropping below the sand will allow you to place those last few tiles to make a seamless transition into the sand. I'll be doing that later off camera, but that being said, I wasn't able to do it on the original pyramid, and you can't tell. With that done, we can get to the part that I'm most interested in, framing in the rest of the Behemoth gate for access from the rear. Since we're working with offset foundations here, once you're done framing in the sidewalls, it's a good idea to go outside and check the exterior to make sure everything placed properly and you don't have anything sticking through the outside of your pyramid. Now we're going to open the other basement walls to those windows we put in the exterior skirting. This is going to add a lot of needed light in the basement as well as additional space. And we're going to be doing the same to the area below the front stairs just for the sake of symmetry. Before we move on, I'm going to second guess how I handled the Behemoth gate framing and tweak it a little bit. And it's going to be nagging at me for a while, so near the end of this video, I'll be back to do that once more and finalize it. Alright, that's it for the basement for now. Let's place the interior walls of the main level. These are full-sized adobe wall tiles offset by 1/4 tile from the Tek quarter wall tiles that we already placed. Take this all the way around just like we did for the quarter tiles. With that done, we can now start placing the roofing tiles for the main level. Make sure you base them on the quarter tiles that we put on the exterior, not the full walls of the interior that we just placed. Alright, that's the roof of the main floor done. We still need to frame in the main door, but before that we need to start the upper level as the main door frame is going to connect to that. For this level we need a ring of quarter adobe ceiling tile around the perimeter. What we're going to end up with here is a double border of quarter tiles. One to hold the quarter Tek wall along the exterior, and the other to hold the full adobe wall of the interior. Make note, it has to be double quarter tile here. You can't use full ceiling tiles like we did below because we don't have the same support system beneath it. And you can't cheat it by only using quarter tile anchors like in the corners or something like that, because that's how half of my original pyramid was destroyed. I did that, and then someone who shall remain nameless removed one of the anchors and half the building disappeared. Full quarter tiles all the way around. That's the move. Got enough of the next level done to frame the main entry now. While we're at it, we might as well continue the roof as high up as we can go, but like the floor on the level below, we're reaching the limit of as far inward as we can go without putting some foundation work in. I tried to finish the quarter tile border here, but as you could see, some of the tiles couldn't be placed. Foundation work is coming. Alright, now let's start to mess with the foundations. But be warned, any changes you make to your already established foundation risks losing some of what you've placed above. And sometimes just placing something new and then removing that will delete stuff above as well. It's super fun. I'm going to start with the section of the foundations that are nearly at the level of the sand. Since we're keeping the sand that's already there, I'm going to run the foundations as far into the sand as I can without changing the elevation. Then I'll use ceiling tiles to blend the transition into the sand, like the sand's been blowing into this space and piling up for years, that type of thing. Next up is to make my central foundation set a little bit bigger. This spot needs to be built out anyway, as it's going to factor into the aesthetics of the finished basement. I'm building out here because I know where I want my support pillars to be, and one of them is in the middle of that central foundation area. All of my pillars get omnidirectional lamps placed inside them. This doesn't affect the light produced, but it does make the pillars glow and it looks really great and it adds to the aesthetic. All is going well until I remember that this central foundation has a raised section on it, and that needs to be placed before the pillar can be set. There we go. Now we can build out a bit more, but the foundation is still going to need more work. In one of the crashed video segments, I started that ramp you can see there in the corner to help me with spatial orientation. And when I reset everything, I just left it there. This may seem a little counterproductive since we're supposed to be adding foundation, but this section is going to be inaccessible because of the ramps going up to the main floor, so I'm going to remove these to get a little bit of extra space down here in the basement. I'm going to try and finish up the last of the things that are going to happen in the basement before I start finalizing the foundation placements. So let's do the left ramp to the main floor. For this, we need to clear a 2x4 section in the rear corner of the main floor. Before we start the ramp, we need to place 4 quarter tiles. See, somewhere in all the things I tweaked down there, that whole section of central floor that we placed vanished. I told you. Super fun stuff. Alright, still having issues along those edges, so I'm going into the crawl spaces of the basement to add more foundation. This is where you can build bedrooms and stuff like that. At least that's where we put ours. There's plenty of unused space in here. Alright, I'm going to need to place my second and third pillar supports in order to fill up this area. I'm making them equidistant from the front corners to that central pillar. That spot was an issue in the original build too, and it required some wonky foundation placements in the basement. I have 2 more pillars that need to be placed on this main level to support the stairs to the upper section, so I'm going to get those in place and then continue them down to the basement and see how they look. In order to do that, I'm going to have to start working on the steps to the upper section. I should note here that I'm making slight changes to what this area looked like in the original pyramid. The stairs are going to be the same, but the base that they're on is going to be a little bigger and have slightly different dimensions. So it's going to take me a minute to get the orientation down, and you'll notice I do a couple attempts before I get it right. The goal is to have the first landing of the stairs at the same height and 1 tile away from the center of the window. This allows me to put like a platform there for like stargazing or whatever you want to call it. That box under the stairs can hold one of your power generators until you get a tech set up in the basement. Yeah, these pillars worked much better in the original version of the pyramid. The Behemoth gate framing has eaten into that space a little bit, so I'm going to try and figure out another foundation option so I can keep more of that space clear. Well, that's done, but since we didn't run the pillars all the way down to the basement, it didn't help with the foundations. Time to go back down there. To get those 3 panels, I had to expand in 2 sections. What I did to one side of that central area, I did on the other as well. So we should now be good to finish the floors and build on the upper levels. We can close off the floor here. None of the support pillars from below are going to be coming up to this level. And it's going to have an opening in the middle. I'll take this time to finish the roof as it's necessary for the atrium, which is the very final floor of the pyramid. Okay, this is the last section of the main body of the pyramid, and it's a flat glass roof. You can use regular greenhouse roof for that, or greenhouse ceiling tiles, the little quad panes. We use a modded glass tile that's clearer than the normal one, but it has no panes to it. And what I'm going to do is overlap them to get that same grid appearance with the clearer glass. And there we go, folks. The main body of the pyramid is done. We're not completely finished with the exterior. We still have to build the shields, but the main structure is complete. It's still a little dark on this end, so I'm going to add a few more light pillars here along the Behemoth gate. The opening in the middle of the upper floor is rectangular, so I'm going to use a row of quarter ceiling tile to the left and right to narrow it a bit. Then I'll start working on the atrium that hangs above this. The atrium anchors from the ceiling and isn't supported by anything below. Come down 2 pillar lengths from each corner of the glass ceiling and then place an upside down adobe ceiling tile so that it looks clean from the underside. From there, we use quarter tiles to move up slightly and then quarter ceiling tiles to surround the pillar again. The atrium has a double floor because this is where you're going to put all the plants that you're going to grow, and some of the crops have root systems that look questionable. I'm looking at you, potatoes. Also note, I'm placing lamps in each pillar, and in order to do this, since these pillars are holding the whole thing up, you have to make sure that you've connected this by more than one pillar before you start removing any other pillars to replace them with lights and then put the pillars back one at a time. In a minute, I'm going to realize that this ramp location for the stairs doesn't work. In the original, it worked fine. But because of the quarter tile spacing to the left and right of the ramp, the tech rails aren't going to line up right. When we used metal railings in the original, there was no problem because they overlapped perfectly. What you see me trying to do here, I put metal railings in place like we did in the original, but I ultimately decided that I liked the look of the tech railings better, so I adjusted everything. Okay, we are now done with the entire main structure, both inside and out. Now it's time for the tech accents. First off, the exterior shields. So the goal with the exterior shields is to make it look like the pyramid opened at some point in the past. Something like the pyramid in the original Stargate movie. I've already completed 3 sides of the shields and I've got the last side set up. That orange tile you see there is the anchor for the upper shield, and the green tile below is the anchor for the middle shield. Each one is anchored to the corner of those quarter tile walkways that run around the pyramid. And down there at the bottom is the anchor for the lower shield. Now, let's start with the top. The anchor here is 2 quarter wall tiles. Now we attach the roof panels. 1, 2, up. 1, 2, up. Now we add the corner pieces. Next, we move down to the bottom of the shield and we add 2 more quarter wall tiles and 2 more quarter ceiling tiles. We're going to use those to add 2 more corner tiles to each side of this. Next, we're going to add 2 railings and add inverted railings on top of those. Do the same thing on the other side and the top shield is done. And that's it. Now we can do the middle shield, which is exactly the same as that one. Same setup, same number of pieces, everything. The only difference is that the middle shield is anchored with a full wall tile instead of a quarter tile. And that's the key. From top to bottom, each shield is anchored 1 quarter tile higher than the one above it. That makes sure that none of them run into each other and instead overlap very slightly. Here we go. Middle shield. Exactly the same as before. 1, 2, up. 1, 2, up. Corner pieces. Move down. Quarter wall, quarter ceiling, and 2 more corner pieces on each side. Couple of stacks of railings. And there we go. Notice the overlap of the middle shield to the top shield. If they're touching, one of the anchors is the wrong size. Okay, now for the lower shield. The lower shield has to be placed last because we're going to use the middle shield as our guide so we know how high and wide the bottom shield needs to be. The anchor for this one is a full wall tile with a quarter tile on top of that. Now, if you're on a flat plane, just use the lowest anchor point in each corner, which should be at the same level since you're on a flat plane. But if you're on a hilly area, like this, where the ground or the sand beneath your base has different elevations all around, what you want to do is find the lowest tile seam that remains visible in all four corners. This will allow you to build your anchors in a consistent position on each side. So what you'll notice as I follow the seam is you can see that all the anchors are on the same line, but because of the varying sand elevations, the anchors look a little off from one another. But they're not. Just follow the seam all the way around, place your anchor tiles, and you're good to go. And as long as you have foundations at or near the corner of the inside of your pyramid skirt, you should be set to put your shield in place. All right, let's build the lower shield. Remember, we're going to use the middle shield as our guide. I'm going to start with 5 roofing tiles and see how that lines up. The goal is to line it up just after the lower point of the middle shield. And that looks like it might be good. So now I build up towards the middle shield. However many tiles we used along the bottom just now, we're going to use the same amount vertically, 5. And on top of that, we're going to put the corner piece. Perfect. Just a little bit of overlap and neither shield is touching. Now we build downward along the other side and fill in the empty spaces in the middle. There we go. Now we drop to the very bottom of this shield and extend it downward into the sand. That piece is red, so we'll come back to that in a minute after we finish the rest. Okay, right here. Since the sand level has dropped so much here, this end of the shield has extended much farther than the other shields did. It still looks proportionally correct, but since it's extending so far into the lowered sand, we've moved too far away from the pyramid foundation. So I need to add one foundation right in this corner here to be able to complete this side of the shield. There we go. Now I just finished burying it in the sand. This last tiny gap here has to be cheated with GCM Ghost Mode. Again, this isn't necessary. I didn't have Ghost Mode when I built the original pyramid, and you don't notice these little spots. All right, now we'll take care of that red piece that we saw a minute ago. Okay, see, I thought this was just like that other one where I had to Ghost Mode underneath, but it's missing foundation. So I move inside the pyramid, place a foundation piece, and I should be all set. There we go. And that's it, guys. That's 3 shields completed. Now you just repeat that process on the other 3 corners and your pyramid is all set. Give me a moment to splash a little bit of paint. There we go. And now we head inside. It's time to build some structural supports. We're going to use sloped and slanted tiles to make support beams for the main level. Start from any corner and count in 3 full tiles along the wall. The 4th tile is where your support's going to be. Each support section has 3 full wall segments between them, and there's going to be 4 along each wall. If done correctly, these supports will extend through the floor and pop out into the basement. And they can also be extended into the upper sections of the pyramid. Okay, that's the main floor supports. In the basement, there's only going to be 4 to complete. The rest pass into the walls. In a minute, I'm going to realize that I set these up wrong and I'm going to come back to fix them. And that's it for the downstairs. All that's left is the upper section. Now later, I'll realize that there's a small triangular piece sticking out through the roof at the top of each of these. So there's going to be some repair footage coming at the end of this video. But for now, the supports are complete. The last and final accent is a chandelier in the main room. Find the center point of the atrium's underside and mount a skinny metal pillar. Then use metal railings to construct a chandelier. This is actually lower than it should be. I should have removed the lower floor section from the atrium so that the pillar could be anchored to the higher floor piece that's right above it. It would have raised it by half a space so it wouldn't be so close to the floor of the main floor. I've done that off camera, so it will be the right height in the finished walkthrough. Lastly, I go back to the Behemoth gate to fiddle with the framing one final time. Here's where the video was supposed to end, but as I mentioned, I found triangular pieces sticking out of the roof that needed to be fixed. So I took care of those. And along the way, while I was getting all this footage, I took a trip back to my original pyramid to compare. And I realized that the basement windows of the original have wider alcoves, and I think they look better. So I've adjusted the basement of this version to match. There it is, the last renovation. We are officially done. Unofficially, I may have run around off camera and added a couple cosmetic tweaks here and there. I replaced the Adobe wall belts on the interior with Tek, added some torches to the chandelier, double checked to make sure that all the basement foundations had uniform walls on the visible sides, widened the Behemoth gate framing by a quarter tile to the right and left, and lastly, I GCM ghost cheated a few extra flooring tiles into the basement floor where it meets the sand to get a smooth transition everywhere. Thus, I present to you the finished walkthrough. And with that, I'll say thanks for watching.